Welcome to episode 182 of the Forward for 50 podcast, where we interview people over 50 who are pursuing new direction for their lives. It's an opportunity for men and women to tell their stories, their way, and in their own words. I'm Greg Gerber, the founder of Forward from 50, and your host for today's show. My guest today says that loss of identity may be one of the biggest challenges people face when transitioning into retirement. Jerjian is a retirement transition expert, author, and creator of the DARE method. During the pandemic, he conducted an extensive survey of people between the ages of 55 and 75 across the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. More than 2,100 people completed all 9 questions. The results were revealing. While health and finances were major concerns when people were given the opportunity to change something about their retirement, 36% said they wanted to find a new purpose. George eventually concluded that one of the first casualties of retirement is identity. When our identity has been closely connected to our work for decades, leaving that career can create a tremendous void. In our conversation today, George explains why retirement should be viewed as a turning point rather than an ending. First, we'll discuss why preparing financially for retirement is only part of the equation and why people also need to prepare mentally and emotionally for the transition. Second, George explains why people need to rediscover who they are apart from their careers and how examining their past can uncover interests, abilities, and experiences that point toward a new purpose. Third, we'll talk about his DARE process, which stands for Discover, Assimilate, Rewire, and Expand. Changing the stories we tell ourselves can open possibilities we may have dismissed because of our age. Finally, George explains why people over 50 should continue learning, growing, traveling, serving others, and pursuing experiences that they have been postponing. George knows something about making that transition himself. After retiring at 52 following an illness, he spent years searching for what came next, and at 69, he embarked on a round-the-world journey to countries he had never visited. To tell us more, please welcome George Jerjian to the show. Thanks for joining me today, George. I really appreciate the time. I understand that a few years ago, you interviewed 20,000 retirees. That's a pretty big sample. What did you discover through all of that?
Wow. Yes, that was in the pandemic, 2020, 2021. I used Facebook to connect to individuals retiring or people who'd retired or were about to retire in the Anglosphere, US, Canada, UK, Australia, New Zealand. People aged between 55 and 75. And it was 9 questions. A few questions about their situation, demographics, and slightly more in psychographics. But the kind of pivotal direction of the questions was, what is your biggest challenge in retirement? And granted, it was in the pandemic, the results that came in were 50% said health issues. And given it's the pandemic, I think that kind of probably shows the number why it was so high. But I think that it was something that surprised me. I did not think it would be that high, pandemic or otherwise. The second one was outliving their savings.
Okay.
At 35%.
I can imagine.
And 15% said, what was it? This lack of purpose.
Okay.
So that was the general numbers. But I pivoted the question to, if you had a magic wand, which one would you address? And 50% said health again. 36% said finding a new purpose.
Okay.
So that was an interesting thing. So when you give people agency, they know what they have to do.
I'm surprised during the pandemic, isolation did not come up on that list.
It probably did, but it wasn't. I don't think people had got quite that far. It's the obvious ones that when they're answering questions, and there's only 9 questions. Okay. I wasn't drilling down because I was going to lose them. I already had 30. This is over a period of a year. It was a July to or August to July or something like that. Over a period of a year, that's how you got these. But I had 35,000 people come into question number 1, and just over 21,000 completed all 9 questions.
Okay.
But still significant.
That's a great sample. And health anxiety and aimlessness were the top concerns. That doesn't surprise me at all because so many people at my age here in America anyway, they are struggling with health issues. They find that they get to retirement and their bodies just can't keep up with all the things they dreamed that they'd be able to do. So it's good that you're addressing that and showing people that's something that they need to pay attention to. But aimlessness is one seasoned citizens think that they've outlived their purpose or that they just no longer have a place in society. And that is not at all true.
No, it's not. And to your point, Greg, I'd like to add something here. Once I'd done this survey, this 12-month survey, and I got all the information that I needed, I realized there was something missing. You've ticked all the boxes. You've done everything the right way, but your intuition tells you there's something missing here. And I realized this when I came across a quote by Henry Ford, who said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have set fast the horses. Yeah. And at that point, I had my aha moment. I realized I'd been asking people what they thought. And it came to me that people don't know the answers. They offer you what they think it is, and it's probably secondhand because they haven't really thought about it.
Good point.
And on the back of that, I had to go back to the drawing board again. Not a great place to be after you've done a year's work. But you have to face reality if something's not quite right. And I said to myself, I didn't do anything wrong. I asked people what they wanted. They told me what they thought it was. So I accepted that. But I realized they don't know what they don't know. And so when I went back to the drawing board, what I discovered was the first casualty in retirement is identity.
Yes, that's absolutely.
Who am I? And the reason everything goes to shit when people retire is because people's identities are integrated in their work. When the work is released, their identity collapses. So before they've even embarked on what they want to do in this next stage of life, they're now lost, like Odysseus in the Mediterranean, lost, fighting Cyclops and sirens. They don't know where to start or where to end. And the reason is they don't have an identity now without their work. So they're flailing.
I agree.
And I know that because I experienced that. And so it's about, so what do you do? I drifted for 9 years after I retired at 52 following an illness. I had to semi-retire because I realized that once you have a rendezvous with death, you wake up to, there's a lot of questions I haven't been asking or addressing that I've been sweeping under the carpet because it's inconvenient and it's not allowing me to proceed along the lines that I want to go. But once you have that meeting with death, it changes the dynamics and you can't unsee what you've seen. You can't unfeel what you felt. And the questions that arise from that. What's my life been about? What am I here for?
Do I have any purpose? Am I making any impact? Yes.
And I think it's about having meaning.
That's right. What I have discovered is that so many people prepare for retirement. They're focused almost entirely on finance, that they want to be able to live and have the money to support what their lifestyle should be or what they want it to be, but they give no consideration as to what they're going to do. And I live here in Sun City, Arizona. It's America's first planned retirement community. It was built in 1960, and there are 8 recreation centers and 8 golf courses. And people come here thinking, all right, I've worked all my life. Now I'm just going to relax. And I'm going to golf all day, and I'm going to join the clubs and things like that. But they realize that their life lacks purpose after about 6 months, and they are bored to death without
Correct.
that purpose.
We can't go back. Although many people try to get back to what they used to do. Foolishly, I think, but they're looking for safety. They're looking for something they know. That part of them is gone, and nobody wants them back there, technically, right?
That's absolutely.
But they're scared to move forwards into the unknown, particularly now that the money spigot has switched off. So they think that staying where they are is safe. It's not. It's the most dangerous place to be. You need to be moving forwards into the fear, but still moving forwards. And so who you were is gone. Who you're going to be in the future is unknown to you now. So you're in this liminal space. And you need to stay in that place and explore. And that's why I tell people to travel, to find inspiration into what they love to do, which they've forgotten for most people because they've just worked themselves into this state of identity that they created and sharpened in the first part of life that they struggle to let go of. And you almost have to, like a ship leaving port, you go into the ocean and you lose sight of land. And if you ever get stuck in the doldrums with no wind in your sails, you're stuck and you're drifting there. And it's really alchemizing you, right? But ultimately, you will get to where you want to go because you're going to find what you love to do. You're changing identity. You're not comparing yourself to who you were and what you were earning earlier on in life. And you find your new purpose. So you find a new identity, a new purpose, and a new community. And that's the direction you need to go. Now, it could take you a few weeks. You'll be very lucky. Or it can take you a few years or even up to a decade to get to this new place, depending on how much effort you put into this, willingly or not.
Okay. I understand you wrote 3 books, and one of them, the first one, is more about preparation for retirement. What are some of the things that people need to do to prepare for this transition?
I think what it is, they need to learn about themselves. They need to invest in themselves. They need to invest in trying to understand what their life's been about up to now. So I get them to do an audit on their lives. So like, for example, I went on a 30-day silent retreat so I could do that. I'm not recommending that for everyone because it's not necessarily the right thing for everyone, but I did it because I always dive in the deep end. That's just my character. And so I went on this 30-day silent retreat to cut out all the outside noise so I could go on an adventure within me, which I call an inventure. So I go on this journey, and one of the exercises I was asked to do was to do an audit on my life. And I chose the medium of the homes that I grew up in or lived in since I was a kid up to now. And in those homes, I was asked to look for the wonderful and good things that happened to me and the stuff that wasn't that great. I'm a writer, so I write everything down. And I came up with about 12 stories of crises in my life that ended up being platforms for new opportunities. And that was the Spirit of Gratitude book, Crises or Opportunities was about. And those 12 stories effectively came down to the conclusion that none of the new opportunities would have been available to me without the preceding crisis.
Correct.
So in a way, what I'm saying is retirement is a crisis in the true sense of the word, which means a turning point, not a crisis that you tear your hair out with anxiety. A true crisis it means a turning point. That's all it means. And so it is a turning point in life. But there's no manual out there to show us how to navigate that. And that's why I created my DARE course.
Okay.
To help people make this transition.
And tell us about the DARE course. It's more about transformation at that point?
It is a whole process. It's called DARE because you need courage to take this leap of faith. But I believe that taking no risk and staying where you are stuck is the biggest risk of all. So, in fact, it's natural for you to move into this next stage of life if you only stop fighting it. And DARE is also an acronym for Discover, Assimilate, Rewire, Expand. D for Discover stands for discover what retirement is and what it's not. A is for assimilate new information about our mind, both the conscious and the unconscious. And we don't realize is that we have this wealth of possibilities in our unconscious, but it's been programmed to make us behave. The programs in our minds have been created in such a way to protect us, but now some of those programs are sabotaging us.
Correct.
So we need to know how to record over that inner dialogue, the inner stories, and the inner belief that are stopping us from moving forward. And it's not as simple, or it's simple, but it's not easy.
Okay.
Okay. And it needs persistence. And after a while, your unconscious mind begins to believe what you're saying and runs away with it. It's the old adage you will recall, fake it till you make it, is exactly that. Although I hate that terminology because you're saying fake it. But our subconscious mind can't differentiate between reality and fantasy.
Good point.
And we are very fearful of fantasy because it means, oh my God, you're going out of the reservation now. But the fact is that all reality is actually just fantasy because it's all made up. If you believe it, it's real. If you don't believe it, it's not real. Now, I'm not saying that jump out of the window from the 10th floor because you can fly. I don't mean that because there's laws of gravity, right? I'm talking about within the human bound, the mind is very powerful and we can change and pivot things. The next letter R is for rewire. It's to rewire the neurons and synapses of our minds, the stories we tell ourselves. I can't do this. It's too late for me. I'm too old. If you believe that, nobody can argue with you. You're the captain of your ship.
That's right.
You're the captain of your soul. If you genuinely believe that, then no one can argue with you. But I would say that you're not going to get very far. Dementia, Alzheimer's, and all those things are waiting for you. What we don't realize is when we retire, traditional retirement, we think it's okay now, we're just going to relax, chill out. But our subconscious mind is working 24/7 from date of birth to your date of death. So if you stop working and you don't feed your mind with something constructive, something that is going to be productive, of service to others,
Yes.
for which you get paid, your mind will create problems because your mind cannot stay idle. It'll start worrying. And now you have plenty of time to worry about your health, to worry about, oh my God, I don't have enough money. So you create those worries, translate not just from a mental point of view, right? It impacts your emotions, it impacts your physical body, and you bring things on that would not have been or would not have come about. So you need to actually learn to keep busy at doing something you love to do, of service to other people, for which you will get paid until you can no longer work, which might take you till your 80s and 90s, hopefully.
I'm glad to hear you say of service to others, but I don't know if you need to be paid or not, because I will tell people all the time that they like gardening, for example, or fishing, for example. They want to do that, but it can become a service for others when they take another person with them fishing and teach them why they love the sport so much. So now they're educating that person. They might not be getting paid, but now they have purpose in helping to expand somebody else's life by helping them to fall in love with fishing. And the same thing with gardening. They can go in there and garden all day, create these beautiful gardens, but if there's nobody there to enjoy the flowers, that really defeats the purpose. But if you take your flowers and brighten somebody else's day by giving them away to them, You might not get paid or whatever the case be, but you would have purpose and bring joy to somebody else. But it is serving others in some way. I think that's so important.
No, absolutely, Greg. And I would say to you that a lot of people say that you don't want to worry about getting paid or about money. I'm not sure I totally agree with that. And I'll tell you why. Money's energy. It's a transfer of energy, right? Exchange. First of all, you're absolutely right. I think you do need to serve others because that's where we get our sense of connection. We're social animals, and it's the antidote to isolation and loneliness. When you're engaged in something that you love, something that you're good at, and you're able to help and serve others,
Right?
now initially, it's fine not to get paid because you're getting into the groove. But believe me, if you do something well and you do it with love, there are people out there who will pay you for what you do. And so it puts you into this place where you don't actually have to worry about money so much because you're still connecting, you're serving, and you're getting not just all the other good stuff of being connected and serving others, but you're also getting paid. So I think that don't deny yourself getting paid at some point once you're in the groove.
Okay. That makes sense. What's E in the DARE acronym?
E is about expansion.
Okay.
Now, why expansion? Because longevity has, if you like, destroyed the retirement equation. Long life has made sure that the vast majority of the population, whether in the United States or in the UK, are going to outlive their savings. Because the amount of money that we should have put out in order to be able to retire for 35 years without working another day, which in itself is madness. But let's leave that aside. Supposing that you could lead a very healthy life doing nothing and serving no one and just eating out of the money that you've saved for 35 years, you would have needed to save away probably 75% of your earnings. And I'm just throwing a number out there, which would make, if you're going to have a family, have a home, there's no way you could do that. The retirement equation is broken. And I suspect that the generations after us will never retire as an idea until they can no longer work, until they're physically or mentally incapacitated. They are not going to stop working. And my point is that, and if financial advisors will move you from equity investments, which are risky, to safer places like cash and bonds, you've got another 35 years to go or 30 years to go. If you retire at 65, why would you do that? It's madness. So, in fact, what I'm saying is that because we still need to expand, and I firmly believe that the best is yet to come for those who believe that the best is yet to come. You can't be retrenching and retiring. You need to be expanding and growing further out, right? None of us knows our date of death. Now, some of us may not make it till the end of today, but the vast majority will. And if you've got another 30 years to go, this is not a time to retrench and retire. It's a time to consider expanding, right? And by expanding, I mean expanding our capabilities, expanding our horizons, expanding our desires of what we would like to do. And so you could invest some of your pension savings in educating yourself in an area that you love, but you don't know enough about, but you want to teach yourself. And now suddenly it opens up a whole new range of possibilities that would not have been open for you. And so you've now, if you like, you've up-leveled.
Okay.
And you've made the possibility of the best is yet to come real.
That's great. And all this started with a 90 or 30-day silent retreat. Was that a guided retreat, or did you just...
Yes,
okay.
It was a guided retreat. Yeah, it was up in North Wales in the UK. And it was a Jesuit Ignatian retreat. It's called Spiritual Exercises. It's a 30-day thing. And you are in silence except for half an hour a day where you speak to a spiritual director. And that 30 minutes is split into two. 15 minutes, what happened to you yesterday? What were the challenges, etc., etc. And then the following 15 minutes, it's about your exercise for today and tomorrow.
Okay.
And also, there were about 25, maybe 30 people there, but everybody eats in silence. And I used to walk out in the beautiful Welsh countryside for 2.5 hours every day. And that silence is
almost foreign to us today.
Yeah, I'll tell you the truth. The first 3 days getting into the silence, I was ready to shoot myself. I went by train because if I'd taken the car, I might have skipped and left and gone home. And then coming out of that silence, it's a bit like decompressing when you've gone scuba diving. It takes time, a few days, to be able to take in the noise outside.
But you certainly start hearing what's going on inside, and I like that.
Absolutely.
I think that would be a real benefit.
In fact, Greg, when I was there, I grew a beard because I didn't have time. Would you believe? I didn't have time in that silence, and so I grew my beard, and I realized that because in the process of being in that 30-day silent retreat, you meet a part of you that you have pushed aside.
Exactly.
As though you have a relative that you're embarrassed about. Oh my God, I don't want to see that part of me. I do not want to know that part. But that's the most authentic part of us. So I had to reconcile with that part of me. And when I went back home, I trimmed my beard, but I said, I'm going to keep this beard because this is the real authentic me.
Okay, that's neat. Because I would imagine that you're correct that some people have been suppressing things from childhood that have really influenced them. And it would come out in silence when they have nothing else to think about and no other distractions, no news of the day to keep them occupied. And it's probably a good thing for those folks to come to terms with these things that they've suppressed for a long time.
Absolutely. And I think one of to your point, I used to be a very different person. I was a doer. I was relentless, ambitious. And in many respects, I used to be told that I was quite brutal in my decision making because I was very decisive. And frankly, I didn't take a lot of shit. But that wasn't really me. That was the persona that I had constructed to be able to deal with the world without taking on emotional baggage.
I can see that. It's kind of a wall because you're setting up a wall behind and you're hiding behind it. So
correct.
Exactly. Right.
And in a sense, when I read the Odyssey again, and I was reading and listening to podcasts on the Odyssey, it's the same journey. Odysseus in the first part, in the Iliad, the guy is a very cunning warrior, and obviously the guy who created the Trojan horse and therefore responsible for mass murder of the Trojans. And that's a lot to carry. And I think his 30-day in silent retreat was going into this Odyssey that he went in. And he came back a transformed individual.
I like that. Did that lead to creating the Odyssey of an Elder, your third book?
Yes, but that's exactly what happened. But obviously Christopher Nolan's film was not around. I'd obviously known about the Odyssey, and I've always admired the story of the Odyssey. Not so much the adventures, but more that's the kind of the overstory.
Okay.
But the understory, the psychological transformation. And because I was in this, that's like my vocation at the moment, my work. And I'd suggest to people to travel, to open their minds, to discover a little bit about themselves, and also to travel with intention, to learn, to observe, I decided that I couldn't tell my clients to travel abroad on a sort of gap year, if you like, or a sabbatical, if I hadn't done it myself. So I went on an epic journey, one that I've always wanted to do, which to go around the world in 80 days, but to countries I'd never been to. And so I took about 6 months to prepare and plan this. And that was back in 2024. I was 69 years old, and I'm glad I did it then, because if I hadn't, I would be uninsurable for that kind of trip. Again, notice to your audience who are retiring, don't push things out.
Okay.
Do your bucket list now. And the reason is, beyond the bucket list, you will find what you love to do. And then that will be your new beginning.
I saw a lot of that when I worked in the RV industry, what you would call caravans over there, as everybody dreamed of retiring and buying an RV and then exploring the country. Then when they got to that age and they had their RV, their health did not allow them to explore or do anything beyond park at a campground and really just sit there and watch TV or sit there and watch the birds.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's very sad.
It is indeed. So you are a retirement transition expert. So if people were interested in getting more information about retirement, are you open for consultation? That kind of thing?
Absolutely. I have a 1 hour free course. I have an 8-week online pre-recorded course, which is very affordable. And then I have an 8-week live, 90 minutes each week, where I do a presentation for each week, and then 60 minutes, I help people through the exercises for each week. And at the end of 8 weeks, they end up with a 1 sheet of paper, which is life plan, designed on the hoof over 8 weeks. But that is the working document to help them move forward, exploring, pivoting, changing. But essentially, you've got something to work with, and it's not here in the ether. You've got it down in writing, and you've worked to get this out, right? I don't have the solutions for people. The solutions lie within them. I make sure that I elicit that out. So to retirees, I would say, we all tend to look outside of us to look for answers. The answers do not lie outside. There is no guru out there who's going to give you the answers. You have the answers behind a wall of fear. And it's about retrieving them. It's about lowering that wall in order to access what it is that you really want to do before you shuffle the mortal coil, as Shakespeare would say.
How can people connect with you if they would like to learn more about you or to take advantage of these courses?
Jerjian.com, spelt as you see on the screen here. George, Jerjian.com. And also my social media handles for LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter is George Jerjian. So it's really straightforward and simple.
Very good. Thank you for sharing this story today. I really appreciate it, George. I think it's inspiring to other people, and they certainly do need to look at this retirement in a different way if they want to have it and enjoy it and to really live that second life, because you're right, it's 20 or 30 years in a completely different non-working life where you control the routine, and it would be good for people to connect with you to learn more about it. I hope they do.
Thanks very much, Greg, for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
George Jerjian offers an important challenge to people approaching retirement or already living in it. Don't confuse leaving a career with living a meaningful life. For many people, retirement creates a space between who they used to be and who they are becoming. George described it as a period of exploration in which people need to stop comparing themselves to their former careers and begin discovering a new identity, purpose, and community. He encourages people to conduct an audit of their lives, examining experiences, interests, successes, and even difficult periods to discover patterns that might reveal what matters most to them. In his own life, George discovered that many crises eventually became platforms for new opportunities. Another lesson is to challenge the stories we tell ourselves about aging. Thoughts like, I'm too old, it's too late, or I can't do that anymore can become self-imposed barriers that prevent us from exploring what might still be possible. George also stressed the value of continuing to expand rather than to retreat. That might mean learning something new, developing another skill, traveling with intention, or investing time in something you've always wanted to explore. Perhaps most importantly, find ways to use what you enjoy doing in service to others. Connection and contribution can provide an antidote to the isolation and loneliness that sometimes accompany retirement. George encourages seasoned citizens to start working on that bucket list now, because in exploring interests, you may discover something you love that becomes the beginning of your next chapter. To learn more about George, his books, courses, and work helping people navigate the transition into retirement, visit GeorgeJerjian.com. You can also find him on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X. That's all for this week's show. If you'd like to start living a more meaningful life, I encourage you to download our free guide to finding purpose, which is available at forwardfrom50.com. I'll have another inspirational interview on the next episode of the Forward from 50 podcast. Thank you for listening. If you like the show, please consider leaving a review wherever you download the episodes.